I'm here with Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. Alexander, we have some breaking news coming out of Austria. It looks like, from the reports that we're getting right now, that the Vice-Chancellor of the coalition party of Kurz, which is the current Chancellor of Austria, which is a conservative right party and a conservative right coalition, he was involved in some sort of sting operation where they caught him making certain concessions to a Russian oligarch niece. Once again, there's the Russians in this, and Spiegel has published a video where it shows him promising this Russian oligarch lady, promising her stakes in media companies and certain government contracts if she helps out the party to maintain its position in power. And the Vice-Chancellor's name is Strache, and he is of the Freedom Party of Austria. Alexander, what is going on here? Once again, we have what many of the Russophobia crowd on Twitter is calling Russian meddling in a European country. Once again, a Russian oligarch's niece.
Niece,
and,
yes.
More of the same, I guess you could say. What do you make of this story?
Well, first of all, I think the first thing to say is that somebody clearly was filming these two people together in this villa in Ibiza, this Russian oligarch's niece. And I'd like to find out which Russian oligarch's niece, by the way, because that, of course, matters a great deal. But somebody was clearly filming this. This happened 2 years ago, at a time before the Freedom Party had become the successful party, which became the government party in Austria. I would remind people that, of course, the Freedom Party has allied Austria with Viktor Orban and the more conservative anti-integrationist groups within the EU. And it's very interesting that this video has suddenly surfaced now and has appeared in the German media. Germany and Austria obviously having very close connections with each other on the eve of European Parliament elections, where it was expected that the anti-integrationist right-wing parties, including the AfD, which in Germany, which is allied to the Freedom Party, would do well. And of course, this all plays directly into the narrative that all these right-wing anti-integrationist parties across Europe are somehow being manipulated by the Russians, and that this is all part of a gigantic Russian play.
Something smells here.
Exactly, to undermine the EU. Yeah, well, exactly. This is exactly the point. Because, of course, first of all, I'm not sure who this individual was. I would love to know who it was exactly who filmed this video, and I'd be very, very interested to know exactly how this video got published and was provided to the German media, and why it came to be published now. I mean, there's lots of unanswered questions here. But can I make a few immediate observations? Firstly, it's important to stress that Vice-Chancellor Strache himself, who's just resigned, categorically denies wrongdoing. He says that there are parts of this video which have not been published, which will show that, in fact, nothing untoward happened, that there was a discussion, but that this discussion didn't evolve into anything, and that no actual money passed or changed hands, and that none of the things that were supposedly being talked about during this video actually materialized and resulted in anything. That is the first thing. The second thing is that, as I said, depending very much on who this niece is, I'd be very, very curious to know who the oligarch in question is, because, of course, and this is a point which many people in the West consistently refuse to understand, Russian oligarchs are not necessarily friends of Vladimir Putin. They're not actually oligarchs. They are very, very rich Russians. They no longer have the political power that they did back in the 1990s. Many of them deeply resent Vladimir Putin for stripping them of that power, and many of them are very hostile to Vladimir Putin. Now, not all rich Russians are hostile to Vladimir Putin. Some of them are loyal and patriotic and support Vladimir Putin and his government. In fact, most of them do, but some don't. And some of the better known ones emphatically don't. So until and unless I know exactly who this person is, I'm going to be very, very careful about assuming any Russian state involvement in this story.
All right, so you have Strache has been implicated and he's resigned, as has his close aide,
yes,
who was also implicated in the video. He goes by the name of Gudenis. He
That's
has
right.
also removed himself as well. So you do have a resignation, but you also have Strache, as you correctly said, he is saying that more information needs to be revealed about the video to be placed into context. And he said that he resigned so that he doesn't damage the ruling coalition, even
Correct.
though there are reports that say that Kurz is saying that they will have snap elections because of this scandal coming out. People did head to the streets in Vienna. The most recent reports said 5,000 people were in the streets calling for elections as well. And Alexander, let me read you some tweets because, as expected, you have the Russia-hating crowd that jumped on this very, very quickly. And here are some of the tweets from that Russia-hating crowd. And I think you're exactly right. This is timed 1 week, even less than a week before the European elections. You know, to coincide with a lot of what's happening in Brexit as well. And so let's take a look at what the people are saying. You have Anne Applebaum, who tweeted, "Oh, look, the Austrian far-right party leader is prepared to accept clandestine Russian money and has ambitions to destroy the free press." You have a tweet, Alexander, from David Beard, which says, "In the past 2 days, news reports have detailed how Britain's Brexit forces and Austria's far right have been secretly on the take from Russia." And finally, Alexander, you have a tweet from Stefan Windberger, which says, "Austria, leaked video with Vice-Chancellor Strache shows his willingness to work for Russia for money. His closest aide, Gudenis, is already on Russia's payroll. Regardless of your political position, this is how democracy dies." Alexander, what do you make of this?
Well, I mean, it's absolutely predictable that these sort of people will be making these things. And of course, may I add that they're making their specific allegation, and notice the allegation that, you know, that the pro-Brexit parties in Britain are also Russian funded. There have been exhaustive investigations about this in Britain, and that claim has never been substantiated and is almost certainly untrue. Now, whilst we've been speaking, I've been checking with with Der Spiegel, and what I have found is this: it refers to this person who we were talking to. I'm talking about this Russian woman as the purported Russian woman, Alyona Makarova, who claimed to have Latvian citizenship as well, was pretending to be the investment-hungry niece of a rich oligarch. Now, all of that makes it sound to me very much as if this is a setup, because it's quite clear to me that whoever this person is, I mean, I've never heard of any Russian oligarch or Russian businessman called Makarov, and it all seems to originate with someone from Latvia. So it's all starting to me to look like, very much like a setup. And I suspect that Strache, who perhaps ought to have been a lot more careful than he was set up at this meeting in Ibiza by someone and was introduced to this Russian woman, this purported Russian woman. I'm quoting now from Spiegel, and that this whole affair will turn out to have been more of a provocation than a fact. And of course, one which, as I said, all these people are using on the eve of European elections. But I think the fact that Sebastian Kurz is now talking about elections himself in Austria probably means that he knows that there is less to this story in terms of the Russian connection than people think there is, and perhaps more to it in terms of it being a possible provocation than we think it is also. So we'll see.
All right. But Alexander, why would, if Kurz knows that this is a setup, why would he then call for elections?
Because I presume that he's hoping to expose the fact that it is a setup during those elections. Oh. That would be the obvious thing for him to do, of course, if he's able to do that and able to do that successfully, then the whole dynamic of this thing could very easily change. Now, I mean, I want to stress this is speculation, it's theorizing on my part, but it is based, as I said, on this report from Der Spiegel, and I will read it again. The purported Russian woman, Alyona Makarova, who claimed to have Latvian citizenship as well, was pretending to be the investment-hungry niece of a rich oligarch. Doesn't seem to me to be very strong facts there. And bear in mind, this is 2 years after the event. One would have thought that if she really was a rich Russian investor connected to a genuine Russian businessman with real traction, by now an organization like Der Spiegel would have established that fact.
Yeah, and I think it doesn't take much to realize that this video coming out a week before the EU elections, no doubt is meant to hurt conservative right parties, no doubt meant to hurt the Brexit party in the UK, as we saw from the tweets that people were lumping in this scandal along with the Brexit party. It's all just something does not pass the smell test here.
I mean, read this. This is presumably her story, and this is apparently presumably from the video. She wanted to invest over 200 million euros in Austria as capital that, quote, cannot be deposited at a bank because it is, quote, in fact not entirely legal. I mean, who actually says those things? I mean, the whole thing seems to me, as I said, like a provocation. And the fact that she appears to have claimed to have a Latvian background makes me even more suspicious, because there's been widespread suspicions that Latvia and the other Baltic states have been used to launder money. And one wonders exactly what is going on here. Of course, the Baltic states, including Latvia, are very antagonistic to Russia also. I would add, by the way, because I've been to Austria, if you go to Austria and you go to Vienna, the Russian business presence in Austria is enormous. Austrian banks are very visible if you go to Russia, and Russian businesses are very visible if you go to Austria too. I remember being surprised at the extent of it. And I mean, Lukoil, for example, which is one of the big Russian oil majors, has a giant presence in Austria. And one of the sort of most prominent buildings in Vienna is their regional headquarters. So I wouldn't be surprised, as I said, if this all plays in. And as I said, if we eventually discover that this is a provocation, it certainly looks like that to me.
Yeah, and Latvia is where all the German money is laundered. That I also know. All the German money is laundered from Latvia.
Well, there you go. So as I said, I mean, also bear in mind, Austria has been a major supporter of Nord Stream 2. So this is another, and is working towards becoming the hub for the other pipeline that's coming from southern Europe, you know, the extensions to Turk Stream that have been talked about. So as I said, this thing doesn't really make sense. And as I said, when you look at the Der Spiegel story, as I said, which I'm actually looking at, it doesn't really make much sense either. As I said, clearly Strache was set up. I mean, we can say that with confidence because someone was filming all of this. And this individual doesn't seem to be a real person anyway, because, as I said, Der Spiegel seems to be very uncertain as to who she is, and what she says doesn't seem to make much sense. And Strache himself insists that no actual wrongdoing actually happened. So I think we're going to learn more about the story before very long. But as I said, I suspect that when it's examined properly, it will all fall apart.
Yeah,
that's my guess.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And if they think they're going to weaken Kurz and the conservative right party in Austria, and any other conservative or conservative right parties, including those in the UK, I think they're very, very sadly mistaken.
Well, I think it's more likely in the end to strengthen them, actually, because, as I said, since this clearly looks to me, and I mean that's certainly how it looks to me, a provocation, a purported Russian woman who claimed to have Latvian citizenship, pretending to be the investment-hungry niece of a rich oligarch. And when you have all those qualifications in, I mean, as I said, it doesn't make much sense. As I said, when you try and pull that kind of story on the eve of EU elections, I mean, one mustn't make the mistake of thinking that people don't eventually see through all of that. It will just make people in Austria very angry.
Yeah, I agree. Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran, thank you very much. Guys, if you like this video, click the subscribe button down below. Click on that notifications bell to get notifications every time we push out a new video. Visit the Duran shop. Pick up a t-shirt like the polo shirt that Alexander is wearing right now. Help support the Duran, and also a mug. A nice Duran mug as well. Awesome. And don't forget to donate to the Duran as well, PayPal and Patreon. The links are in the description box down below. And you can get a copy of this video in audio format. Follow us on iTunes and on SoundCloud as well. And you can also follow us on Instagram, the Duran_com. And don't forget to go to the Duran.com to our new website and see all the articles that Alexander is looking up to. Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran. Thank you very much. Until next time, everybody, take care.